we might do a hunger experiment where we give every child a bag of some kind of a snack. Okay. And in one child's bag, let's say they have one goldfish and one raisin. Another child's bag has 200 goldfish and 200 raisins, and then anything in between, right? And we have the kids kind of, dump their snacks out in front of them to show what they have. Don't worry, they're in plastic bags. They're not like dumping them on the floor.
I'm fine with
And,
it.
the
I live with
first,
petri dishes. It is what it is.
and we ask them, what do you notice? And
Mm.
the first thing I'm sure that, you all would guess here is they tap into how unfair it is,
Oh
right? Well,
my
that's not
gosh.
fair. Why does that person have all of that and I only have this? And then we use that as a bridge into food insecurity in our community, right? And that there
Mm.
are many families who are working really hard, but at the end of the month they still don't have enough money left over to get everything they need, including maybe all the food they need. And so food pantries exist to fill that gap. And how wonderful is it that we have these services in our community? So, we help kids kind of come along in that learning journey in a way that's really developmentally appropriate for them.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Medeiros.
And I'm Colleen Hungerford. And this is We're Doing This Right, right? A podcast for the whole woman, mind, body, soul, and business.
It's humor infused, as real as it gets, inspiring, and you'll walk away with real usable tools for life and business.
If you love what you're hearing, please share with a friend, subscribe so you'll never miss an episode, and rate and review whenever you listen.
So find your earbuds, lace up your walking shoes, or cozy up with a beverage of your choice. It's time to dig in.
All right, guys, I'm here just confirming a very interesting spelling last name because we do it right over here. We're doing it
We
right,
try to.
right?
We
Hi,
try to.
Colleen.
Hi, Cheryl. I love your new haircut.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was time to make it not look so thin.
It looks
So
great.
here we
Cheryl,
are.
how much did you cut off?
God only knows. At least 6 to 8 inches, I would think. It was really
Really?
long. Yeah, it was really long.
But it's always
hmm
up.
Yeah,
Every
because it
time
was
I
too
see you, it's
long.
up. Yeah.
So thin, long, we're phoning it in, doing what
We're
we have
just
to,
doing what we
surviving.
can. We're surviving. We're saying,
I actually started onboarding my VA this morning, so life is good.
oh, fabulous. My
Yeah,
VA, it
yeah.
takes a bit. I just want to say as a note to everybody who has a VA, it does take or wants one or is thinking of having one. It takes a few weeks to kind of get into the groove and also figure out the things that you thought you needed versus the things that you need. So just know that, Cheryl, it takes like a couple
Okay.
weeks to kind of get, because there was
Um,
definitely a point where I was like, oh my God, what am I even paying for? This is so dumb. And then I was like, oh, she's fabulous. I love her so much.
Good.
So
Well,
there's that.
yeah, fingers crossed. So
Okay.
we are not alone.
Or
We have
not.
a friend here today, and her name is Brandy Jemczura, and I think I did it right. So
That was
Yes.
fantastic, Cheryl. I'm impressed.
thank you. Thank you so much. Brandy is the founder and executive director of Seeds of Caring, a nonprofit in central Indiana and central Ohio, empowering kids to create a kinder, more connected world through service, social action, and community building. A former teacher and social worker, Brandy launched Seeds of Caring after looking for meaningful ways to help her own children give back. Since then, the organization has grown from 285 to over 38,000 child volunteer experiences annually, supporting the work of more than 100 nonprofit partners. I love this.
Yes. We
Come to
love it.
California.
You guys should.
We'll put it on the list, Cheryl. We're on a mission to get this organization as many cities as we can.
Mm.
Amazing. Okay, so Brandy and I know each other. We don't know each other, but we know each other. And we also have turns out very many mutual connections, which is why I love the world. I love community because it really works on all these works with people who are all interconnected. So I met kind of sort of like your counterpart, but not really your counterpart,
Mhm.
Sarah, in Indianapolis at an event, at an Indie Maven event. And then turns out she knew a bunch of people that I knew. And then turns out they were also trying to work with the school that my kids go to. So then I was like, oh, let me help with that. And we got all connected. And the more that I learned about Seeds of Caring, the more I was just like, whoa, this is like a really, really cool and impactful and also like very approachable way to help kids understand service. So, Brandy, I always say this. We had your like, couple sentence bio, but we want to know all about you and then all about Seeds of Caring. And I know you have so much passion about this. So we're really, really excited to talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Colleen. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here with both of you and just appreciative of the opportunity. Who am I? Well, I guess to start, I was born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, so I'm a proud Ohioan. And I am a mother of three kids. I think that kind of defines a lot about me.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, I always thought that I wanted to grow up to be a teacher and really, work to educate our young people in a variety of ways. I taught middle school for a couple of years, and it wasn't just the fact that I was teaching middle school, although some people would say, well, that would have made me run from teaching right there, that age group, right? But no, I actually love middle schoolers and I love teaching. But at some point, I found that there was some conflicts between what I really wanted to be teaching kids and how I was kind of being forced to teach to a test. And so I
Hmm.
decided I wanted to make an impact in a different realm of my career. And so I went into social work and public policy. And through that, I really got more tuned into, all the good work that's happening out there in the community, all the kinds of things that nonprofits are doing. And I found that I was really passionate about how can we build a stronger community infrastructure where we can all support each other. So fast forward to a couple of years later when I was became a parent, right? And I think as those of us who are parents know, there's a lot of pressure on parents. It feels like from the time your baby is 5 days old to define, are they going to be academically successful and what professional sport are they going to play in the future?
Yeah.
And, are they going to be a professional musician? I mean, all of these pressures that we feel as parents, I started to feel those as my kids were the ages where they were 4, 3, and then I had a third on the way at that time. And I found myself as a person just reflecting on, what was it that I really wanted my kids to grow up to be like. And in the end, I got to this place of, I want them to be kind, empathetic people who, if they see something in their world that they're not okay with, they're not just going to sit back and say, well, that's someone else's problem, or, that problem's too big. There's nothing I can do about that. But rather, they're going to do something about it. They're going to show up. They're going to learn more. They're going to try to support their community. And that's how I knew I'd be successful as a parent. So that was the impetus for founding Seeds of Caring, which I'm happy to go into more. But that has very much defined the last 10 years of my life. I've been on this mission to inspire as many young people as I can to really get involved in their community, to see the wider world around them, to build empathy, and to ultimately grow up to be the leaders that we need in our world. So that's a little bit about who I am.
I love that so much. I love that, when we're thinking about being parents, and then when you are a parent, like you just really start to think about like what are the important things in life. And yes, you're like, okay, well, I want them to be a genius and a professional athlete and a this and a that and a scholar, whatever. And I can really echo what you were saying as far as like kindness. Like I tell my kids all the time, like I tell them like, especially especially my boys, also Vivian, but especially my boys, I tell them all the time, like, you are handsome, you are smart, you are athletic, you are whatever. I said, but the most important thing you are is kind. And we always talk about like what's the most important thing we can be, and the most important thing we can be is kind. And I think when we really, as parents, that's the message that we're pushing from or that's our campaign as parents from the very
Mhm.
beginning. Like that creates and raises a different type of kid. And it's the thing that I'm most proud of when people tell me about my own kids. They'll say like, he's so kind or she's so kind, and
Mhm.
I'm like, thank God.
Yeah.
Because like sometimes kids are dicks, to be
Mhm.
honest, right? Like sometimes
Yep.
they're jerks.
Totally.
But if we can continue to have this like mission of kindness, I think those are the things we get to do as parents that really make a difference and change the world. And and you have taken it to like a whole another level of everything. And
Oh,
now you're parenting so many other kids as well with Seeds of Caring. So tell us a little bit about what is Seeds of Caring and like how does that mission of kindness and stewardship and things like that go into Seeds of Caring?
yeah, yeah. Real quick, Colleen, before I tell you about that, I have to tell you that, you said sometimes kids can just be dicks, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that is so true. Our intern, like
especially at home.
our private, especially at home. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. But our private tagline here is like, let's not raise jerks, right? Like,
Yes.
let's not raise jerks. We can do better. We can, and my kids just the other night, they actually it has been the end of the quarter for our school district for like 3 weeks, and I happened to have parent teacher conferences that night. And my youngest, who's 8, she goes, "Mom, have you even looked at my grades?" And I was like, "Oh no, I forgot about that. I forgot to log in and check on that." And she's like, "Do you care what grades I get?" And I said, "You know what, honey? Yes, I do. And maybe me not checking on your grades was a matter of being a little busy and distracted. But also, I said, you know what? What I care about more than anything in this world is that you're a good human, and you're a good human, and I know that about you." So I said, but let's log in and check your grades. Let's do that together before the parent teacher conference.
Yes. So I want to say one tangent on this really quickly because I've been talking about this. People are like, I don't care what my kids' grades are as long as they're kind. And I don't think that that is appropriate, to be honest, because if our
Mm,
kids are not educated, then they can't and don't have the experience and the knowledge and the understanding on how to process information going into the future. And I think
Okay,
you need to have both of those, kindness and the ability to like learn how to learn, to to receive information, to learn, like all of those things. I think those things are important. Now how
but
grades
let's
work into that is
remember,
a different
yeah, I was going to
cycle.
say we've got all these neurodivergent, neuronormal,
Sure.
like we talked about on our episode last
mm,
week, of
Yes.
like that just may not be the right environment for that person to
Correct.
learn or to
Correct.
be measured on what they're learning.
mm.
And so I do think, like, yeah,
So I
I
think the
watch.
caveat to that is
Mhm,
education is important. Grades might be
yes,
subjective based on where they're learning and how they're in
right.
their educational setting that they're in. But I really don't think it's okay for us to say, like, I just want them to be kind. Because I
Mhm.
think they have to be kind and intelligent
Yeah.
and be able to
Yeah.
like,
Know where to
process
find
and be able to like,
information, know how to function in the world.
Yeah.
correct,
Yeah.
correct,
I
correct.
agree. I agree, but I will say there's a study, and it came out of oh gosh, well, I'm gonna forget where it came out of, but there is this kind of like Institute for Good, and the study showed they actually measured what did parents think was most important. So to your point, Colleen, like I agree entirely, right? We want our kids to be balanced, right? And it's important that they are critical thinkers and that that they know how to learn. But this study measured what what do parents think is most important, and then what do kids think their parents think is most important? And
Interesting.
there was such a mismatch. So a lot of parents said, what I think is most important, right, is that my kids are things like, kind, or, able to be relatively independent, things like this. But the message kids got is my parents want me to be smart and they want me to be happy. And so
Hmm.
it was like this interesting mismatch, right? Between the messages that we sometimes, I think, unintentionally send our kids and what we actually do think is important as parents.
Yeah. It's like continually very hard to be a parent.
Yeah.
Like
All
no
this
matter
to
what,
say is this
all this
is
to
the
say is
worst and best job ever.
yeah, it's so hard, right? And I think here's why where Seeds of Caring ties into this is it is such a tool to help you be a better parent and to help teach empathy and understanding. And so okay, so now Brandy,
Yes.
tell us
Circle
tell
back.
us about Seeds of
Okay.
Candy of
Yes.
Caring.
Okay, so here we go. So at Seeds of Caring, our whole mission is empowering young kids ages 2 to 12 through service and volunteerism. And so our vision is that we can create a kinder, more connected world that's led by our youngest generation. And so to do that, as an organization, we partner with over like 50, 60 nonprofits in a community to find out what needs do they have that kids and families can help meet. And it's not going to be every need, right? We all know that like a 4-year-old is not the definition of efficiency, right? There's a so there's a lot of things that
At what
that
age do
4-year-olds.
they become the definition of efficiency? Because I'm holding my breath.
I don't know. I'm 42 and I don't know how efficient I am all the time. So
Okay, okay.
But so there's settings where young kids volunteering are not going to meet the needs of our nonprofits. However, there are so many ways that they can. And so whether that nonprofit partner says, "Hey, we really need 300 sack lunches delivered every Monday on site so we can hand them out to our guests." Great. We can rally kids and families and schools to do that work in their own spaces and get you these lunches every Monday. Or maybe a nonprofit says, we would love to have kids come on site and help bake Rice Krispie treats and decorate cookies to share with kids and families who are staying at the Ronald McDonald House. Awesome. Like that's something that we can do, right? And so what we do at Seeds of Caring is we take the load off of our nonprofit partners. We say, fantastic, now that we know this is your need, let us design an activity that's going to work well for young people so that they can contribute, and we incorporate the education into it. So when you mentioned, Colleen, that empathy building, like that is our sweet spot as an organization. That is what we do best, and that's really critical. And that comes through thoughtful reflection and education that we do with the kids. And then we get them engaged in that hands-on service, and what we find is that kids walk away inspired, they walk away more confident, they walk away with a greater sense of empathy, and more than anything, they walk away wanting to do it again and again and again. And that really is something that inspires me every day, is to see our young people, dedicated to making their community and their world a better place. And we make it easy on parents, like you mentioned. We really are thoughtful about the fact that families today are so incredibly busy. And so, how do we make this really turnkey so that all they have to do is sign up, show up, and everything is kind of ready to make a really meaningful family experience.
one of the things I really like about your mission and your program is that it is so age encompassing. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when, we're all moms of three, right? And, there'll be a lot of like cool service projects or activities, but it'll be for like kids over 5 or kids over 7. So you can't bring all your kids to that. And then by default, you're like, oh God, and now what am I going to do with it? It becomes a problem, right? But this
Mm-hmm.
really becomes like something that again is removing the barriers here to like not only the nonprofits but also for the parents to create this again opportunity, and very timely for us. I think this is, while cliche, during this Thanksgiving time period that we have coming up, at least when we're recording, this is when people start to think about, okay, where are the places and what are the things that I can do
Mm-hmm.
during this time as far as service projects. I know
Yep.
every time around this year, my husband and I are always like, oh my God, our kids are spoiled. They need to understand, like, they need to understand how good they have it, but also they need to understand how to give back. They need to understand, like, what are the needs of the community and things like that. And it can be really hard sometimes
Mm-hmm.
to find those opportunities.
Yeah, yeah, and we do. We really aim to make a meaningful experience for kids of all ages. And it's funny, we get the question. One of the most common questions we get when we say we work with kids ages 2 to 12 is someone says, 2-year-olds. Like, what can a 2-year-old actually do, right? And I always share, there's so much they can do. First of all, if we do any programs in partnership with senior living buildings,
Hmm.
all those 2-year-olds have to do is walk in the door, and they're
Yeah.
going to brighten the days of the 30 seniors in that room. Or you put a 2-year-old on an assembly line, and they will work for more than an hour. They will walk down that line and pack those bags. And I laugh because we had a 3-year-old one time who was helping to pack lunches, and they took like 4 bags of chips and put them in like the same lunch, right? And I, went up and said, "Oh, we're going to just do one in this lunch so that we have enough for the other lunches." And they looked at me and basically said, But if it was my lunch, I would want 4 bags of chips. And I was like,
Valid.
wow, empathy, like right there, right? You are taking a moment to stop and think, like, how would I feel if I was in this position? And it was just amazing. So, we get those older kids on quality control when we have the 2-year-olds packing
Yeah.
these bags and whatnot. But it's truly something that every child, can find meaning in. And our name, Seeds of Caring, it's all because we really are just planting these seeds, and the way that they grow over time is pretty incredible to see.
Well, when you start with a 2-year-old, and if they have continued exposure, like it will just become part of who they are,
Hmm.
like
Mhm.
language and like everything else. Like we're building the framework of that human in those years. So how valuable that is. I'm thinking as you say this, my 5-year-old would be really good quality control right now. On Halloween, when we got back to the house, it was hand out candy, and she all night, all her sisters and friends were in the room watching a movie, and she was like, one, you may have one, like set the rule for
Yeah.
every kid that come up. And I'm like, try to tell that adorable little child, no, you will only take one candy.
I think they're really good. My kids are very good at directions right
Mhm.
now,
Giving it, giving
and
it.
giving it, and very specific. So this is a very interesting thing. Like, and for better or worse, they're a little bit in the like, you said you were going to
Mm.
do this kind of thing or whatever. But like, I mean, I think about the fact that like, also one, it's not like you're just like throwing a 22-year-olds and say all together and saying like, hey, pack some lunches. Like everyone's there together, right? You're all supervised doing this, whatever. So I think there's opportunity for everybody there. But
I heard
so
22, like the number 22, but you were saying 20
22
dash
year
two
olds.
year olds.
Yeah.
I
It's
was
not like
like,
it's like a
I think
two.
22-year-olds could handle that, Colleen.
I don't know if they could, to be honest. Like maybe not. But also like it's not like it's a rodeo of like just toddlers in there
Right.
doing this by themselves. Okay, so Brandy, tell us a little bit about what are like if I was like, okay, cool, like this is so great. I'm here in Central Indiana where there's a chapter.
Mhm.
Like what are some of these projects that you guys are doing or
Yeah.
have done in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, okay, like let's imagine that we all gather on a Saturday morning at a local food pantry, okay? And we show up, as soon as kids walk in the space, they're curious, right? They're curious about what they see. They see these food, these shelves lined with a lot of food. They see sometimes that, food pantries will also have clothing closets or, other opportunities for guests to get things that they need. And so they're taking in their environment. So then we direct them into some kind of a learning activity. Let's say, for example, we might do a hunger experiment where we give every child a bag of some kind of a snack. Okay. And in one child's bag, let's say they have one goldfish and one raisin. Another child's bag has 200 goldfish and 200 raisins, and then anything in between, right? And we have the kids kind of, dump their snacks out in front of them to show what they have. Don't worry, they're in plastic bags. They're not like dumping them on the floor.
I'm fine with it.
And, the
I live with
first,
petri dishes. It is what it is.
and we ask them, what do you notice? And
Mm.
and the first thing I'm sure that, you all would guess here is they tap into how unfair it is,
Oh
right? Well,
my
that's not
gosh.
fair. Why does that person have all of that and I only have this? And then we use that as a bridge into food insecurity in our community, right? And that there
Mm.
are many families who are working really hard, but at the end of the month they still don't have enough money left over to get everything they need, including maybe all the food they need. And so food pantries exist to fill that gap. And how wonderful is it that we have these services in our community? So, we help kids kind of come along in that learning journey in a way that's really developmentally appropriate for them. Another really huge tool that we use is children's literature. So we read, we'll sit the kids down, we'll read a book together about, a Saturday at a food pantry, or there's so many great books about food insecurity. Maddie's Fridge, I could go on and on. But we read a book with the kids, we take time to reflect on it, and then we bridge them again into, great, so if we know this is a challenge in our community, how can we help? Right? Because every one of us is going to need help at some point in their lives, and every one of us can give help at some point in our lives. So how do we help? And that's when the kids start to brainstorm their own ideas of things they can do. And then we get them involved in whatever the activity is that day. So if we're at a pantry, we might be, stocking the shelves. We might be organizing the food. We might be organizing the clothing pantry. We might be packing sack lunches that day. So that's just kind of an example of how those programs work. Those are our in-person programs. And we love for families to join us at our in-person programs. But every now and then, there's families that say, my schedule doesn't line up, right? Like I have a 2-year-old that needs to nap during that time or whatnot. And so then we also have programs that families and groups like schools or scout troops can complete from home. So for that, we provide a service packet that walks them through how to do that education themselves at home. So there might be a read aloud book, that they can show their kids, or there might be some kind of guided discussion that we have them follow. And then after they've done the discussion on their own within their own spaces, then they're told, okay, here's the project, gather these supplies and complete this from your own space. So that sack lunch program, that's one, for example, that was kind of came to fruition during the pandemic when a lot of the
Mm.
shelters and a lot of the pantries were closed. And so at that time, we weren't yet in central Indiana. We were only in central Ohio, but we had a couple of kids really take leadership. They made a video call out to other kids in the community and
Oh
said,
my God.
hey, come join us. Like, this is a huge need. And that project was featured by the New York Times because in 1 year, we made over 20,000, not we, kids made over 20,000 lunches. So those are some
Wow.
examples of programs that folks can get involved with.
Well, I have so much FOMO here in California, but it does sound like there would be some things that could translate nationally, some of these more virtual or even ideas of like if our local food bank hasn't figured out how to tap into using this child labor. I'm just kidding, not child
Yeah.
volunteer and like involving the community, like we could almost approach them with your ideas that have been
Mhm.
successful and give them the
Yeah.
framework. I like this. We're
Yeah.
featuring in our newsletter now because this year I did a program called Leadership Slow. I live in San Luis Obispo, California.
Mhm.
Slow for short. And it was a leadership program where each month they introduced us to a different like part of our community. So like whether it was agriculture day or it was like healthcare day. And on healthcare day, they talked a lot about homelessness. And because in California, the leading cause of homelessness or being unhomed is healthcare bills. And so like how
Mm.
intertwined those are and how to get involved in the homeless shelters and just kind of educating us. Anyhow, all this to say was like I was being exposed to all of these areas of need. And then there's that question of, well, what do we do? How do we help?
Oh,
And so I saw my platform of, my newsletter circulates to 1,200 people in San Luis Obispo County every month. It's like, well, I'm going to highlight local organizations that people can get involved in that they may not know about. And
yeah.
that's been like my easy button. I'm a very good communicator and community builder, so that's very natural for me. But there is so many like I just want to know like what else could we do and be able to expose people to this. So
Yeah.
really pumped on this.
I love that, Cheryl. The research shows that like agency, self-efficacy, like believing that you can do something to make a difference is incredibly important. And so to your point, it's one thing to learn and to be educated, but then it is important to know that like there is a next step that we can take, right? Because otherwise sometimes I feel like the information it just gets too overwhelming if we don't know that there's a way that we can move forward, right?
Right. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
overwhelming. That was one of the hardest things in this leadership program, specifically on the criminal justice day and the healthcare day. It felt like the problems were so big and
Hmm.
so insurmountable that then just knowing like there are small things, even if they're small, they do make an impact that we can do. I couldn't find anything on criminal justice day to do because the biggest takeaway I had from that was that mental health has become criminalized, and
Yeah.
it is so very disturbing. So not to take us down that path, but like at
Yeah.
least the homelessness day, like there is programs that we can get involved in to do something for people.
Well,
Anyhow,
And we
so
always teach kids, we always teach kids too that the education, I mean, and the education is powerful, right? Even if it's like, let's educate someone else about this. Like, can you go and teach someone else what you learned today? like that can also be a powerful thing that is an action step, right? Like growing awareness.
That's a wrap. Thank you for joining us on this journey of laughter, life, and growth.
And remember, you're not alone on this path to success. We're right here with you every step of the way.
Please remember to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And if you found value in today's conversation, we'd be thrilled if you would leave us a review on your favorite platform. Your feedback means the world to us.
And don't forget to share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a good laugh and some practical insight into navigating the challenges and triumphs of our minds, body, soul, and business.
Remember, we're doing this right.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of this discussion. We'll see you next week when we wrap it up with part 2.